Hi everyone, and welcome to my Zoom video. I'm going to give you a disclaimer first of all, and I'm going to be pasting together all these pieces of advice I've collected and insights, and I just want you to know that I know this video will be obsolete the moment I post it, and please feel free to tell me how Zoom has changed since I've posted the video, or things that are just wrong in the video, but they're all demos, so hopefully there won't be too much of that. But a lot of things in Zoom depend on having settings set properly, and so if you get a different behavior than what I show you, your first thing to suspect is that your settings are different, and then the second thing to suspect is that a different version of Zoom has come out, and that's why you're getting a different behavior. In any case, let's proceed. I have a whole series of little demos for you, and I hope you enjoy this. So just to give you an idea of the equipment I'm working on to show you these demos, I have two computers which are currently running Windows. This one is my work issued Dell. This one is a Lenovo that is dual boot, currently running Windows, so for the demos. And there's an old Linux machine back there in case it decides to feature in the video. And I have at least two iPads running. This one is very new, and this one is several years old. Let's see, and I have a phone that is not an iPad. This is an Android. Okay, so I have a number of different devices I'm going to show you things on. There's my document camera, iPivo, and this tablet, this writing tablet. In case any of those things feature in the footage, then you'll know what's going on. And these are just headphone jacks because it's just really too annoying to mute everything. So I'm just going to stick headphone jacks in everybody so I can quickly mute and unmute as necessary for the demos. Also because on the iPad, Zoom does not mute properly, and so you get feedback. So that's just to cover all those contingencies. So here I am, and I have a whole bunch of myself on here, and nobody's showing any of their selves, or everybody's muted. You can see this. So I have two copies of myself. I'm here on my Lenovo as the host. That's my newest Windows running computer. And as a co-host, I'm on an iPad. That is a very new iPad. Within the past few months, I purchased it. It seems that if you log on to two devices, sometimes it kicks you off and sometimes it welcomes you as a co-host. And my guess, just a guess here, it seems like if I try to log on a second computer, I get kicked off. But if I log on to a mobile device as my second login, it makes the mobile into co-host. Okay, so that was the first thing I wanted to kind of point out here. And I've named all of myself based on the computer I'm coming from, but they're all me. I'm all the guests. Okay, now I'm going to do a vanilla screen share, just plain old boring screen share. And I can either show everything, and so if I click here, I'm showing everything. I could show a whiteboard. I could show a specific thing, so I'm going to just do the generic share everything. And then you can see my whole screen, and everything goes out to all my other devices, just like I'd expect. I have pink everywhere in my room right now. Okay, and to stop the share, you just go like that. And that is the most boring way of sharing your screen, where you're sharing everything. You could also choose to share just one application, and that gives you a little more privacy. But if you notice, if I really wanted to share my audio with you rather, I have to share the computer sound in order to do that. So your different systems may have different behaviors, but almost every system allows you to share sound using this mechanism. And so if I play a little bit of this, so you should be able to hear what just happened. Okay, for my next demo, I want to demonstrate how to do a screen share from an iPad. So I logged out of the iPad, and I click here, and I want to click share. Now, the first time you do this, it'll prompt you to download a plugin, but I wanted to show you from the perspective of the iPad what this thing looks like. So here's my iPad. I'm just doing whatever I do on my iPad, and I want to share from it. I'm going to have to pull down this menu and click share. So screen mirroring, that's what it's going to look like on the iPad. And from this perspective, I'm going to click share. It's going to prompt me to do all that. Tap screen mirroring. So again, so I click on the thing that says Zoom Donna. It shows up on my iPad, and just like that. And now I'm sharing. So it's giving me a little bit of time. It's grayed everything out for privacy in case I say, oh, no, I don't want to share that. But I'm okay to go ahead. So I'm just going to go ahead and tap somewhere. And then I can go ahead. And now you're seeing my Zoom share rather than my document camera. So this is coming through Zoom now. And I can do whatever I want. I can open an app and you can see what the app is doing, for example. And just everything I do on my iPad shows up. And so, whoops, I just closed Zoom. No big deal, because right now I'm using this differently. Okay, so that's how you share that. And when you want to stop, you stop like you normally do. You click stop share. And as you can see, I go back to, like, my camera is showing you my iPad is just the same way as you last saw it, but it's no longer showing in the room. So that's how you share from an iPad. Okay, for my next demo, I want to show you how, if you are the one on the iPad, how you can share your screen, which is different from sharing the iPad from your computer, which is what the other demo is. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. You can share other things too, but you can just click start broadcast, and then it's going to give you a countdown in case you realize you did something terrible. And then you just get to tap here to stop fuzzing up. You can do your normal things that you would do on your iPad, and everything you're doing on your iPad shows up appropriately, I think. So like if you just wanted to open a web browser or something, and whatever you want to do. Okay, so you should be able to see this now in Zoom as you're the one sharing your screen in Zoom. So let's just double check to see what it looks like on the other side. So if I'm in Zoom rather than on my own computer, and I'm going to do something very similar, I'm just going to like click a browser and start opening things. And this is what it looks like from the user's perspective on Zoom. This is very, very similar to what it looks like on my screen. Actually, I would say identical. So, okay, so that's that demo. And then to stop, you click this red button right here to stop screen sharing. And it's asking me to say okay. All right, so that's the next little demo. Okay, I'm going to show you something else that can go wrong so you can avoid it. So I wanted to show this background during a meeting, and so I said, okay, I don't want to show my whole screen, and I don't want to share even this whole window because I want to get rid of all this other stuff. I just want to show this particular piece. And I didn't really know how to do it, so I was like, okay, let me just try doing this way. Let me just say, hey, why don't I just do a screen share? And under advanced, you can do a portion of the screen. Okay, so how do you do a portion of the screen? I had selected this specific green box, and right now it's doing exactly what you'd expect on the other devices. It's showing just what's in the green banner. But what's weird is that sometimes Zoom knows like where you are in the window and sometimes you don't. So like I just shifted this, and you still literally get that green boundary. You don't get the thing you really wanted. So you have to be careful, because when you do a portion of a screen, it's a literal portion. But what's worse than that is, even though, let's say I just opened a chat window and I'm talking to someone, Zoom is smart enough not to show you the chat window. So my chat window is literally right on top of this thing that I'm displaying, as you can see. But on the other device, I'm looking and it's not showing up. So this is reasonably safe. But if you do the following, if you say, well, I'm going to look at some controls. I'm going to look at under more, where is it? Meeting info. That's okay. That's not showing up on the main screen. Participants, no, this is not showing up on my main screen. All this is safe. And I can even do something like this. Let me see. I want to see the participants. Right now I can't see the participants because nobody's showing anything, but normally you can see the participants, and that's all safe. But there's another situation that can show up that's not safe. Okay, so here's how you can get into the unsafe zone, and you wouldn't expect this, but if you're sitting here and you go meeting info, and then you're trying to adjust something, this pop-up window is actually showing up in my main screen, and everything I'm trying to do over here is visible to everybody else. I have no idea why this happens. It seems like a bug, but just be aware of it. So just because you think that Zoom is being smart and hiding the Zoom windows from your screen share, don't depend on that. If you're going to be doing things you don't want people to see, I would do them on a different computer, like chat or browsing, whatever you might be doing on another screen. Don't do it on the same computer that you're on for Zoom, because you really don't know how Zoom is deciding what is part of your screen and what is part of your Zoom session. So just be aware of that problem. Wow, that's great. That's wonderful. That's really crazy. Okay. And that happens to be my IPVO camera, but it could be any external camera. And so that's how you do that. Okay, and this I'm just showing you directly from my document camera. I wanted to show you that since I am co-host, or if I'm host on my second device, I can go over here and control the meeting settings. And this is really important because I have not figured out how to do this from a computer, but I will show you how to do it from an iPad. I assume it works the same for an iPhone, and how to do it from an Android. Okay, so the most important one here is the mute upon entry and play, leave, or join sound. This is your doorbell that allows you to hear people coming in and out of the room. And it's often the case at the beginning of the meeting, you want that on so that you can hear that the room is filling up and that you're aware of that. And then once the meeting's underway, it's really annoying. But for whatever reason, I have not been able to figure out, I've tried every single possible way of doing this, not succeeded in figuring out how to do it. Once the meeting is underway, I will show you how to control it before the meeting. But once the meeting is underway, it's very hard to change some of these settings. And so having your second device and your co-host can get you out of that jam. So for example, I have over here. So now I want to go back to Zoom. Okay, so I'm back here. I'm going to make myself co-host. So let me just go back to here, make myself co-host. I'm going to take this guy and say, make co-host. And once I'm co-host, these buttons show up, but before I was co-host, these buttons didn't show up. So by the way, this is how it looks. If you're on one of these devices, you swipe over, and this is actually a safe way to sit because it assumes you're driving, and it's got you muted, which is really nice, and then you tap to speak. But if you're just actively in a meeting, this is not a bad place to hang out. But you can tap through all these pages to see all these different, you swipe through all these pages to see everybody. But what we really want is we want these options down here that says more, meeting, settings, and then you have all these buttons, and you can turn off the doorbell right here. Okay, and then it's kind of hard to get back. I don't use Zoom on my phone very often, so pardon me about that. But both types of phones will allow you to control that doorbell. And again, I don't know how to do it without using a mobile device. Okay, what I want to do is set up for you a situation to show you how the student can display something and you can be writing on top of that. It's extremely useful. It's like you're sitting side by side looking at their homework and you're writing on a separate page beside them so they can take those notes. And you should always prompt them to take screen captures. When you get to a point where you think it makes sense, just remind them to take a screen capture, because otherwise they'll forget everything you said. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to show you from the student's perspective. If I'm going to do a screen share, I'm a student, I select something to share, and then notice how this remote control button shows up. They're going to want to click that, but that's not what you want. That's going to give you control over their whole computer. You don't want that. What you want is to go over to More and say Enable Annotation for Others. So you have to prompt them to give you that annotation privilege. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to the student's computer, and I'm going to share my web work question I'm working on. If I'm working on a web work question, at least the student is, and now you want to annotate on it, but you've just been given annotation privileges. So now you can click on Annotate, and you have the option to change the color, whatever color you want. And for example, you might say to this student, hey, doesn't this look the same to you as this structure? And does this look like a structure we studied in class, or whatever? Whatever you want to scribble down, type, write. So you have these things available to you, so it's like you have a blank piece of paper and you're side by side with the student, and that doesn't disrupt your shared experience on their screen, and it gives you an extra scratch place to explain things to them. And so I find that is very effective. And when you're done, you're just going to say, well, actually you're done. You're done annotating because you just stopped. You can just click here to say, I don't want to do that anymore. And the student can stop sharing when they're done with their question, and then you're back to normal. Okay, so hopefully that works for you. So let's say you want to do a poll. You want to ask somebody, hey, what do you feel about moving the assignment deadline? Okay, so you maybe give them 3 choices. When do they think is a reasonable time to make it due? And so maybe you click on polls thinking you can create a poll, but you can't. But if you click here, it'll launch you into Zoom US, and it will try to log you in, and you're essentially in your main account, in your Zoom account. And then I'm going to say delay deadline, and maybe this one is Monday, and this is Tuesday, whatever. Okay, so let's say I save that. You can also change whether it's multiple choice or single choice, blah, blah, blah. You can change whether it's anonymous or not. Now I've created my poll. Now I can go back in here, and my poll is available. I launch polling, and my other self is going to say they want it due Monday. Okay, and so you can see 1 person out of 1 has voted. I just logged out of all my other devices. So anyway, all those other people could vote, and you know when everybody is done voting because it says blah out of blah voted, so you'll know how that's going. You can end the polling, and then you can share the results with everybody. And then this is now showing up on the other screen. They have an option to see it or close it. Okay. Something. Let me try to make this other person a co-host. And then let's see if they have access to polls. They have access to polls now. The person can read off the polling. Can launch the polls, but I believe you as the host have to create the polls. Okay, so that's good to know. I guess the co-host doesn't have that much power, but they can bounce people to the waiting room. They apparently can run polls, and apparently they can turn the doorbell off for you, which could be really useful. Okay, I guess that's that. I guess I wanted to show you how to change your screen name, and one of the cheesy ways to do that is just click on yourself and rename. There's other ways to do it, but I find that to be the easiest. And as host, you can rename other people, and you can also make it so they can't change their name. I don't think that's necessary for college students, but there are some times when non-college students, you may not want them to choose their names. But just so you know, that's available should you decide it's necessary to keep discipline in your classroom. Okay, so I wanted to show you, like, let's say I don't want you to see this as my video. Rather than screen sharing, for example, I can screen share content from my second camera and then you see, oh lovely, there's my desk. But that's not what I wanted to do. I want to make that into my face. So I'm just going to go over here instead to settings, and I'm going to say, okay, where is my face after all? My face is on the IPVO camera. And then this shows up as my face. There you go. And that's okay. And then I should come back here and see that this is now my face. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few things inside Zoom. And you can use your single sign-on. I recommend using your single sign-on if you haven't. After you do it once, it should figure out who you are and you should get your privileges regardless of how you log in, but you should at least once log in through single sign-on. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of controls you need to be aware of, and over here under settings, something I don't really like about Zoom is you set your settings, and some settings take precedence over all your meetings. This is just kind of annoying, but it is what it is and you have to deal with it. So you can, let's just go to basic tools. There's all sorts, you just scroll through this, there's all sorts of controls, and then there's advanced controls, and I'm just gonna go through and talk about some of the ones that I think are important to know about. The waiting room you probably already know about. Passcodes you probably know about, whether you want people joining by phone to have a passcode. Okay, authenticated users. If you ask for only authenticated users, beware that it will be very difficult for guests to join. So if you're running a class and it's only students from AU, then that's probably fine. It may be even more secure. It's probably a good idea, but it will make it hard for some people to get in if you do that. And these other ideas, you probably don't want to block people from a country because you have students in that country. But if you have somebody who's lurking that you don't want, maybe that works. These are typical things you probably know. Allow participants to join before host. That's something you can do. Enable personal meeting ID. I love this because they give you a personal meeting ID, but you can change it, and I like to change mine to match my office phone number. That way I know it by heart, and I can verbally tell people how to get into my room. So I find that very convenient. Chat. If you don't want people to be able to chat with each other, then that's a way to turn it on and off, whatever. But I like it. I think it's really healthy in a class to let students chat with each other, but that's your choice. You cannot, as the instructor, as the host, you cannot hear their private conversations. You can either allow them or disallow them. It's like a teacher can't read the notes that are being passed in class, but you can decide whether they're allowed to pass notes in class. Okay, here is the doorbell. This is the leave or join sound, and you can adjust this. You can turn it on and off. But it appears to apply equally to all of your meetings. And that's why it's really annoying, because if you know a big meeting is coming up, you might have to turn it off, and then after the meeting, turn it back on, or something like that. It's really, really, like I said, I don't know any other way to change it except this button changes it globally for all your meetings for all time, or if you get in on your mobile device, you can change it and override it for the duration of that particular meeting. Okay, file transfer control. If you don't know how this works, you can actually send files through the chat. If you have an older computer, you probably have never gotten it to work. You have to have a modern computer or that's just not going to work. Meeting polls, again, this is where you kind of control that. Some other things that you might like. This is really important, the screen sharing. You can control whether only the host or everyone can share screen. And if you change this globally, you don't have to change it every single time you're in a meeting, because otherwise you have to keep giving people control, and that just can take a lot of time. So if you want students to be able to share screen, I recommend just doing that. You probably only want the host to be able to interrupt somebody. Now, this right here, notice there's a little comment here. You should read the comments. They're actually really, really important. Whiteboards, you can save, like mine is set to automatically save all my whiteboards. I'm not really sure I like that, but anyway. Remote control. This is, you should be aware that if you click some of these buttons, sometimes unexpected things happen, but sometimes Zoom will warn you before unexpected things happen. So basically with Zoom, read all the pop-ups, read all the warnings. If you see a little V button, make sure you read all the buttons, read all, there's so many things you can tweak. So that's very difficult, because if you change something, you should make note of it, because 10 seconds later, you're going to forget which button you pressed and how to get back your old behavior. So seriously, anytime you change these, if you don't know exactly what they do, please make a note of what you did, because there are so many of these. Allow hosts to assign participants to breakout rooms when scheduling. Okay, this is really cool, but I've never gotten it to work. I do have advice from colleague Patrick Thaddeus Jackson. Says, if you are going to pre-arrange the breakout rooms, you need to put each student in twice, once as student American EDU and once as American EDU. If you just do one or the other, you're going to have all sorts of chaos. So please, if you're going to pre-assign breakout rooms, for each student in each breakout room, add them in twice. You can tell students they can't use virtual backgrounds. I think you might just verbally ask them. They're pretty much adults, and they will turn them off if you ask. And I think you would want them off if you're having bandwidth issues. But Zoom seems to be pretty robust. Just looking through this to make sure I'm covering everything I really wanted to tell you about. So most of these are just self-explanatory. Okay, some of these features are so hard to find that I'm actually like having to search to find them, and I saw them a second ago. This one that says share Zoom window during screen share. This is the one that I just showed you malfunctioned in a previous video. So even though you're saying not to show Zoom windows during screen share, it still might do it randomly. Okay, so I showed you where you can try to turn that off, but it won't work. I want to do something called, I want to avoid doing actually remote support. So this button here, if you turn that on, you will mess up a whole bunch of other stuff. So just warning, I would recommend not playing with that. But if you do, just make note that that's the button you played with, see what it does, and then go back and turn it back off again. And to show you something else, if you do not like going into full screen when somebody else shares their video, this would be controlled locally. Oh, there it is. But luckily it was here. I just couldn't see it. Okay, so if I do not want to go into full screen when screen sharing, I can just say maintain current size, maximize window, full screen. So anyway, that's where you can control that. That's controlled locally, not in your Zoom account online. Okay, so there you go. Okay, and I think the last thing I wanted to show everybody was in your account, your own profile, but you can upload a new picture here, and you can change the size of it. but right here is the upload button. All right, so that's how you change your default picture. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful to you guys, and again, please tell me anything that you want to. Give me feedback about the video, and we'll help each other learn about how these things work. Thanks. Bye.